Software engineers need direct access to Kubernetes in order to move faster and build high-quality cloud-native services. With Loft, it's easier and cheaper than ever before to give your engineering teams full access to a pool of Kubernetes clusters. Loft works with any Kubernetes cluster, and it provides a self-service system that lets engineers create namespaces whenever they need them. At the same time, Loft securely limits every user's cluster access and isolates namespaces so nobody gets in each other's way. Create a Kubernetes cluster in any private or public cloud and install Loft via Helm. Then, connect any cluster you want to make available to your engineers. You can even connect the same cluster you used for installing Loft beforehand. After connecting a cluster, you can use the Loft app store to install any of the over 1,200 Helm charts available on Helm Hub with just a few clicks. Loft provides smart defaults for popular charts, such as Nginx Ingress Controller or Cert Manager. You can even set up a private image registry and integrate it with Loft's authentication system in less than a minute. Loft lets you add users who authenticate via email, password, but you can also connect third-party authentication providers such as GitHub, GitLab, Google, and Microsoft. In the Loft UI, you can give users access to the clusters they should be able to work with. You can configure limits for computing resources and for every Kubernetes object. And for enhanced security, you can also create templates with security and isolation policies such as pod security policies or network policies. After giving a user or team access to a set of clusters, Loft becomes a self-service system for creating namespaces in these clusters. Users can create namespaces via the UI, but Loft also provides a powerful CLI which automatically configures a kube context for each namespace a user creates. With the Loft uspace command, the CLI can also set up a kube context for an already existing space. This is particularly useful when sharing spaces with a colleague via Loft's access control for spaces. With the kube context of a space, the user will now have restricted access to the cluster and will be able to run kubectl, Helm, or any other commands within the boundaries of the respective namespace. If users want to experiment with different ML algorithms or simply need multiple namespaces for creating review apps for their feature branches, they can use Loft's CLI or integrate Loft into their CI/CD system to provision namespaces whenever they are needed. Loft works with any CI/CD system and has been designed with GitOps in mind. Loft does not need a database or any persistent volumes because it stores everything directly inside Kubernetes using custom resource definitions. That means instead of using the Loft UI or CLI, you can also do everything via kubectl, easily version your entire setup via Git, and use GitOps to configure and manage Loft as well as all connected clusters. And even in the Loft UI, every object has a button to display the underlying Kubernetes YAML definition. Loft's self-service system for namespaces does not only increase your engineers' velocity and productivity, but it also saves you money. Loft provides a feature called Sleep Mode, which automatically puts Kubernetes namespaces to sleep after a certain period of inactivity. If Loft detects that there have been no requests to the Kubernetes API server involving any objects within a certain namespace, the sleep mode kicks in. Now, Loft scales down the replica sets in the namespace, which tells Kubernetes to terminate all containers within this namespace. This effectively saves all computing costs for the namespace when it is not being used, for example, at night or during the weekends. In most public clouds, this saves over 70% of infrastructure costs. And because the sleep mode only affects the containers itself, all persistent data as well as the entire configuration for all Kubernetes objects is still there. That means that Loft can automatically spin up everything once anyone starts using this namespace again. As you can see, Loft provides everything you need to empower your engineers to be faster and more productive with Kubernetes. Get started with Loft today.